Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get racist!
I'm about to get racist!
That's right, we're going there. We're gonna be talking about how racism is portrayed in modern video games, specifically how they're portrayed in Jrpgs. This is a topic that fascinates me to no end because it's a media from a racially homogenous country tackling a concept that isn't as common or nearly as well understood in their country. Needless to say, you get some pretty interesting takes from these games, some of which are hell of a lot more well thought out and researched than you'd think they'd be. For this video, I won't be going into every JRPG in existence, obviously. Instead, I'll be sticking to a few that I'm keenly familiar with, that being Fire Emblem, Xenoblade, and the Tales of series. I'll be rating each game I talk about on a scale of 1 to 5. Based on how interesting or well put together I think the presentation of racism is. Now, once again, are you ready to get racist? Cause I sure am.
Now I'm racist!
First, let's start with Fire Emblem, so that the thumbnail I made doesn't immediately go to waste. We're mainly going to be talking about 3 houses. That's right, Fire Emblem and the 3 trap houses. The game was initially released on July 26, 2019. Yeah, that's right, guys. Almost 6 fucking years ago. Are you feeling old yet? Cause I sure am. The game takes place in the land of Fodlan, a place dominated by rigid social class structures and enchanting magic derived from crests. It got an overall positive reception. Perhaps, dare I say, a little too positive? This game's pretty notorious for having some pretty obsessive superfans, but that's neither here nor there. One of the things that made the game stand out from other games in the series that I've played is that it actually attempts to comment on the very nature of inequality, but from different angles depending on what house you happen to choose. The house that's the most significant in this regard is the Golden Deer house, led by Claude von Regan. Claude is the funny upside down man, archer dude on the box art, and for the savvy among you, you may notice something a little different about him. Is that melanin? That's right, this boy is one of the few melanated individuals in the entirety of Fire Emblem. Not only that, but he is a lord. Claude is actually a mixed-raced individual with blood from both Fodlan and from its neighbor to the east, Almyra. As such, Claude has been a victim of racism on both sides of the cultures he belongs to. This makes up a substantial part of Claude's motivations throughout 3 crack houses. His desire to use his influence as a member of the noble von Regan house to shape Fodlan into a place that's more accepting of visually or culturally distinct people. And on the Almyran side, he also faced prejudice for being half Fodish, which that's what I'm gonna fucking call it. It just sounds better to me, just sounds good to me. No complaining, audience. This leads us to our first really interesting detail though. 3 houses represents how racism can form and ferment due to cultural differences. To the Almyrans, battle and strength are things of high importance in their culture. If you want respect, you have to prove your strength and might. The Fodish people, on the other hand, see warfare and battle as a means to an end. As such, the people of Fodlan view Almyrans as savage and bloodthirsty, on top of being just generally hard to reason with, hard to negotiate with. Whereas the Almyrans view the Fodish as soft and weak. The whole view of Almyrans as the faceless horde is also a byproduct of racism, a literal manifestation of the concept of the other. There's a reason why you don't see any of the faces on Almyran characters other than Claude, Cyril, and Nader. There's just so much to be said about this game. Characters like Cyril and Dedu are also fascinating to examine here. Cyril, as an Almiran who was raised in Fodlan, suffers from a heavy degree of alienation from his original culture, a large degree of internalized racism, you could say. Because of his brief experiences as a child in Almira, he has a negative view upon his whole culture and society. This kind of alienation is a lot more common in racial minorities in the real world than people might think. Dedu, on the other hand, is a pretty straightforward victim of the faceless horde trope. Dedu himself isn't responsible for the crimes committed by other people from Duscur, but the responsibility for their actions is placed on his shoulders anyway. The game doesn't make any clear good, bad assertions on a lot of these things. Instead, it simply just presents the ethnic and racial conflict as a matter of fact in a way. In fact, the unbiased way that some characters are presented is honestly hilarious. And with that, now it's time to talk about certain female characters. I am of course talking about Ingrid and Hilda.
A white woman!
That's right, we're talking about the hot racist white women. I fucking love calling Ingrid racist, by the way, because all of her fans seethe with the intensity of 1,000 suns, and it's hilarious. Ingrid is arguably the most racist character in Three Houses.
The people of Duscur...
Save your breath. There were countless people like you in the capital. People who spat, threw things, insults and stones alike, whenever they pleased. Their anger was natural. I do not begrudge them.
As for Hilda, her family literally owns Almiran slaves.
Always so focused on the task at hand. Sometimes I almost forget you're Almiran. I always thought they were a rough and unreliable sort of people. Though you're not really like the rest of them. You seem normal for the most part.
Rough and unreliable, huh?
Yeah, Ingrid and Hilda overall have a lot of questionable views on minority characters, which is par for the course given their individual characters, but what I find really fascinating is the in-universe and IRL response to them. In-universe, their viewpoints basically go unchallenged, and they have to become more open-minded by interacting with members of the groups they have weird viewpoints on. Out of universe, the fact that they're pretty hot basically overshadows any amount of bigotry we see from their characters.
White women control the underground music scene, if you can even call it that anymore. People just call anything underground, you know. If it's for young people, it's underground. The labels know this, everything, you know, it's all under control by white women, remember.
The main idea I think this captures is the mundanity of racial views in Fodlan. It's not alarming to most people. It's only really characters like Claude that can see the big picture, that really get what's going on and don't really like the status quo. Overall, while not perfect, I think Three Houses does a good job in an unusual way. It accentuates the everydayness of bigotry, while not providing any real hard solutions, which makes sense because we've not really solved this problem in the real world either. So I give Fire Emblem Three Houses 4 snow bunnies out of 5.
Snow Bunny Shannon Sharp, you're the biggest and strongest of everybody on the list, so I'm gonna have to sentence you for 10,000 lashes for conduct unbecoming a black man and saying that no black woman can make you happy. 10,000 lashes for Snow Bunny Shannon Sharp.
Now, wasn't that a fuck ton of shit? Honestly surprised I had that much to say about Funny Upside Down Man and Friends. I don't know about this next series though, a series known far more for big booba than racism. That's right, we're talking about Xenoblade Chronicles. I'll only be covering aspects of 1 and 2 since those are the ones I've played and am familiar with. Xenoblade 1 was initially released on June 10th, 2010. Racial conflict can be seen as a big part of the overarching narrative of Xenoblade 1. The Homs, the silly monkey human people on the Bionis knee, are very regularly at the mercy of mecha android kidnappers, the Mechon. The mechanical people from the neighboring Titan the Mechanists. Slight spoilers for Xenoblade 1 coming in a few seconds, by the way, just giving you the heads up. So literally half the conflict in the first half of the game is about human monkey versus metal bastards, some of which happen to be cyborg human monkeys in metal suits. These cyborg metal monkeys are created by a pure metal bastard because he hates the monkeys and wants them to suffer. But in all seriousness, the lengths Egil goes to make the people of the Bionis suffer is honestly impressive. He doesn't want to just win, he wants to make them suffer slowly and painfully. All because of Zanza. There's not as much to say here, but I want to note it because of the sheer inhumane brutality of Egil's methods.
Why make Homs into Mechon? Why are you making them attack Bionis?
If you wish to know, you have only to submit yourself to me. All will become clear when you attack Bionis with a new body born of Mechonis.
Never!
An aspect of racism that we may not think about as much in the present day is the cruelty often inflicted on the vulnerable. But this is only one layer to the racial conflict of Xenoblade 1. The other is among the people of the Bionis. Not including the extinct giant race, the Bionis has 3 races: the Homs, the Nopon, and the Hyentia. The Hyentia are racist as fuck, to put it lightly. While all this insanity with Metal Hitler is happening, specifically to the Homs, they're just chilling out in the city at the top of the Bionis. They're fully aware of what's happening, they just don't care. The Hyentia have the technology and might to fight off the Mechon, but choose not to because they're safe, and that's all that matters to them. It's only after the Mechons start increasingly encroaching on their territory that it becomes a problem for them. Let's also not forget about the interpersonal condescension they showcase. Melia is an excellent example of this, and despite being a princess of the Hyentia, she can't even give a speech without having a mask on to hide her Hom features. If you ask me, I think they're just hating cause Melly is the cutest.
Nigga, you just hating, feel me? That's why you ain't never gonna have no paper, ain't never gonna have no bitches.
With their ugly ass, bird poop smelling ass hair wings. Another excellent example of the general racist attitudes of the Hyentia is this one NPC by the name of, and I think I'm gonna fucking butcher this, Makrish, whatever, and her relationship with a Nopon called Noporik. This is a pretty short side quest, and I don't think a lot of people even fucking did it, to be honest. So this is very easy to like overlook, but I found it to be one of the very few interesting side quests because of the lore shit it has, and because of that I found it to be impactful, as it shows just how deep rooted these attitudes are in the Hyentia. Noporik asked the party to help find a way to stop Makrish from bothering him, despite all of his attempts to get her to treat him with respect. Because of what he looks like, she can't help but treat him as anything other than a cute animal. Makrish, while ironically claiming to be an advocate for harmony, treats the adult Noporik no better than a fucking pet. All of this basically showcases her just general condescension to non-Hyentia, and it's all just masquerading behind this facade of wanting harmony and mutual coexistence. But yeah, enough about Xeno 1. We got so much more video to fucking edit, and I'm not even close. You motherfuckers in the audience better be grateful that I tap dance so hard for your amusement. Let's shift gears to Xeno 2 for a sec. Technically, you could view Blades as their own race, given that thanks to the architect, they have a whole ass life cycle. At least you'd be driven to feel that way given how Jin talks about the differences between humans and blades.
In old Torna, we revered the Titans, feared them. It was the sacred foundation of Torna, a nation where humans and blades lived in harmony. But humans couldn't live like that. Malthus and the humans would have done what they always do. We're the architect's children. We turn into titans, the ground beneath their feet, but they feared us. us.
From the perspective of Jin, blades are essentially a slave race brought into sentience by humans, used for their powers, but never having any real freedom to decide their own fate. Xeno 2 differs from 1 in the sense that all the racial shenanigans that aren't blade-centric are very much in the background of the story. One of my favorite examples of this situation is the Gormati people, a human/feline race in Xeno 2. They live on the first Titan you explore in the game, Gormat. Now, the interesting thing about Gormat is its history of being a colony of the Ardanian Empire. As such, it's one of the poorer regions in all rest. Through one of the game's visual flashbacks, you get to see a small snapshot at the bloody conquest of Gormat. NPCs in the game talk about how the original capital of the Titan was essentially wiped off the fucking map hundreds of years ago. Most of our exposure to Gormat is at the Titan's new capital of Torgoth, but that belies the underlying poverty that's common on the general Titan. You see, the way an empire works is that it branches out, conquering new territory, and then saps away at the resources and labor from the fringe territories it conquers like a fucking parasite. This leads to a hell of a lot of suffering and poverty for the people of Gormat. This, in essence, is a form of systematic poverty and inequity that, while on the surface may not seem racial, ends up along racial lines because of how much the Ardanian Empire is centered around ethnic Ardanians, and their Titan at the expense of everyone else in the Empire. A huge shame. Looks like our more Ardane motherfuckers aren't a huge fan of cat girls. Overall, there's more that I could say about Xenoblade 2, but I already made a long ass video about the game last time, so I'm just a teensy tiny bit burnt the fuck out about talking about it. Overall, I say that Xenoblade does an amazing job showing racial conflict in a super naturalistic way. It's not necessarily the entire focus of the story, but it plays a big role in the conflict of both Xenoblade 1 and 2. Honestly, with both Xenoblade and Fire Emblem, there's enough material individually to make videos on hyper-specific circumstances in each game. This, however, is just kind of an overview of the genre and how it handles the topic of racism, so there's no need for me to go too far with this shit, because we'll be here forever. I do not feel like making a 2 fucking hour video, but if you want to see individual, more fleshed out videos on these concepts, comment down below and let me know, because I'm game to talk about hyper-specific stuff of this nature. But yeah, overall, I give Xenoblade 5 Rhines out of 5.
Now it's Rhine time.
Next up, we're going to be talking about a game where the entire plot centers around racism on an intergalactic scale. A game that's portrayal of the subject is diverse, to say the least. That game being Tales of Arise. Let's grind our souls and wheel together. Can you feel my heartbeat? So take my hand to new tomorrow. Don't hold back and let it be. You give me strength and keep me brave to dive in darkness. Let's burn, yeah, light it up. Sparks just like Hibana. Whoa, light up la Hibana. Tales of Arise focuses on the conflict between two groups, the Danans and the Renans. The Renans launched a planetary-wide invasion of Dana and effectively turned the entire planet into a giant slave plantation. Our main characters are people from both Danan and Renan backgrounds, teaming up together to bring down the system of oppression.
Hey, Master, won't you do me a favor and master these nuts in your mouth, nigga? Come on, y'all. Now, that's enough. I've had...
Fundamentally, the game, in my humble opinion, does an amazing job at conveying oppression in a variety of forms beyond just the physical. This is a big issue that a lot of media tends to run into. They do a solid job of portraying violent oppression, but not as much the everyday struggles of being the member of an underclass. Even more so how relations between people of social or racial castes interact. On the literal fucking hell that Dana had become, we have everything from the brutal physical slavery of Calaglia, Ceslodia's Soviet-era control through fear and distrust, the quiet inequity of Elda Menencia, and Mahasar, brutal insurrection and commentary on hate. And of course, Ganatheros' good old-fashioned brainwashing. Every aspect of this game is a commentary on systematic oppression. However, it's not as widely praised as you would think. In fact, in some ways, I would say this game's takes can be seen as controversial. This has to do with the ass-fuckery in one of the locations I mentioned, Mahasar, or however the fuck you pronounce it. The whole point of this location is to show the dangers of being consumed by hatred for one's oppressors, something that some players thought was off base or just outright tone deaf. Here's what I think. I disagree with the sentiment that this is off base, because it's simply the game acknowledging the fact that the people, no matter how poopy caca, are still human beings. Suffering inflicted from one group to another can lead to the victimized group believing that they are justified in any form of retribution. Sometimes that's just not helpful. Or at least that's what I think. One of the most memorable scenes from Mahasar is when one of the local rebels, a man named Deadime, accuses our main character Alphen of only including Renans in his party because he had a sexual relationship with the heroine Shion. He literally accuses this man of being under the influence of Snow Bunny mind control. Amazing. Their hatred ran so deep that the thought of mutual friendship and coexistence never crossed their minds. Though when you consider how much the people have suffered at the hands of their particular lord, that's not that surprising. That bitch Almadria is literally the worst. Corella de Vil ass, Ursula the Sea Witch looking ass, but she's still human. And nothing makes that more clear than the party visiting Lenegis, the home satellite of the Renans. Just as the Danans on the surface are trapped in a racist system of servitude, Renans have to give sloppy toppy to the other Renans that outrank them on the totem pole. Turns out, Almadria was actually the ultimate feminist she-warrior. She was fighting to stop the most advanced sexism in the galaxy. Going to Lenegis showed a completely different side to the story and shows that the creators of the game understand a fundamental fact about oppressive systems. They often start within the social environments of the oppressor. When the oppressor comes into contact with another group, these systems are unleashed at an even more inhumane scale because it's easier for them to justify it. Perceived differences between the oppressor and the oppressed make it easier to dehumanize and abuse the perceived other, or something like that. Either way, I give Tales of Arise 5 hoodles out of 5.
What did I do?
Oh, now you want to listen. Keep pecking, Hoodle.
Ow, ow, ow! Seriously, what the hell?
It honestly does such a good job just in terms of covering all the bases that I once again could make an entire video going into more detail on just this game, but this was just an overview once again, and I hope you guys found it enlightening in some way, because holy shit did this take fucking forever to put together. Also, I just know some cocksucker in the comments is gonna get mad at me for even broaching this topic. But I guess that's what makes it worth talking about in the first place, right? We're hitting a point globally where a huge amount of the media people are consuming is from the glorious Nippon nation. The thought of a nation where the problem of systematic racism isn't necessarily at the forefront of their minds. Covering topics like these is fascinating to me because of how easily they could overlook and get these issues wrong. Thankfully though, I can say with confidence that they usually do an okay job at the very least. And sometimes actually fucking blow me away with how well or how in depth they go with these topics. Now I want to say thank you all for watching this video, really means a lot to me, and if you want to keep up with me and my antics in the future, follow me on my socials in the description below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.